Welcome to a new one on this channel, and on this occasion is the Radiator from Soundtoys. Now everything on this guide is in chapters, so if you look at the description or the timeline, you can jump to a section or skip the ones you don't want. If you like this guide, please like and subscribe, and if you have the money and you want to buy me a coffee just to say thanks, you have the QR on the screens, or you can go to the links at the description. So this plugin is an emulation of an Altec mixer amplifier from the 60s. Now this was widely used back in the day, and there's the whole history of this gear, the real gear, on the manual of this plugin. Back in the day, everyone used it. Now this is colored and greedy type of plugin. It's not clean at all, and that's the main point of the plugin, is a coloration unit. And the history goes that as more high fidelity equipments came out in the 60s, this was, replaced because it was super colored and it was not so hi-fi. But now, since everything is hi-fi, we kind of look this type of plugins where we can get warmth and coloration. And this plugin is all about good old tube saturation. Now, since this works as a coloration or saturation unit, the input and the output are pretty important right here. And the first thing you need to know is how the path works right here. So the input goes in, it goes through this tiny little section. We're going to talk about this in a minute. But the first tube stage is going to be the input. So if you drive the input, and let's do some drumming. Right here, we have the default settings. And by default, you can see that it's adding a little bit of coloration. It's modifying a little bit of the spectrum, and again, we are not doing anything. So again, as we go up on the input, is going to drive it more, so we have more saturation. So this is the first stage of saturation. More input will drive it more. Then what it does is going to go through the second stage, which is going to be the EQ. So you have some bass. You can narrow it. You have some treble. Alright. And this is the second stage. Now, the third stage is going to be the output. And this goes through, some tubes. So even driving the output will give you a little bit more of saturation, that, coloration. So if you go up on the output, again, it's just going to give you a little bit more of that. Now again, since we are driving the input and you choose to drive the output, it's going to go, loud. So you might need to adjust it on your DAW. Or you just can go down on the output just to match the levels. You can go up in the input and then go down in the output. And if I bypass it, Right, so super cool. Okay, so back to default. The other part, the input, the first stage, the second stage of the EQ, and the third stage are really important. But now we need to talk about the noisy and the mix. So noisy, by default, it's emulating or modeled by Soundtoys. They modeled the noise, the noise that you get from the equipment. It was very noisy, and we can see right here that it's just very, very noisy, and we can actually hear it. If I go up in the output, we can really hear it. It's there. Now, on some plugins, you cannot remove the noise. They emulate it. On this one, you can. So if you choose to use noisy, it's going to give you that noise. If you go to clean, it's just, going to remove the noise. So there's no noise. And this is, of course, completely up to you. It's good that the company decided to give you a control to remove the noise or just, keep it. Because at the end of the day, you're going to be compressing your track or compressing your, your project, your mix. And it's just going to bring that noise up. Sometimes it's something that you want, that mud, and sometimes it's something that you don't want. But the cool thing is that you can remove it. Okay, so let's do a little bit more drumming again. If we go up in the input, we're going to be getting some saturation. We handle the treble, the bass, and the output, right? So I think this sounds good, but maybe it's just, a little bit too much. So the mix control will let you smooth everything that you're doing. And this is the nice curves that we are getting right here. Go all the way dry. Nothing. All right, so yeah, having the mix control is really useful because you can really crank it up, but then you can dial it back and just find the sweet spot right there and, get some pretty usable and nice curves. Okay, so the last thing we need to discuss is going to be the mic and line. Now, these ones are different frequency response, right? They're just two different ones. And it's like saying that you have two different flavors. So when the sound goes in, notice that how we are generating this, we get a tiny little, bump right there at the top, and then it goes down, and then it goes up right here, on the high frequencies. So this is because we are standing on line, and this is, the frequency response we get from line. But if I go to mic, or whatever you want to call it, we're going to get different, a different curve, a different frequency response. And the sound, of course, will change. Now we have a wider bump right here on the lows. We have a cut right here. If I compare it with the line, now this is very different. We have a cut, and we have a cut right here on the high frequencies. So it's going to sound darker, but also it goes up on the upper mids. Now if I play something, go to, and you're going to notice the difference right away. If I input, just make it more obvious. Notice how different it sounds. So this one sounds a little bit more, this one has a lot of low ends. It's pretty bumpy. And this one sounds a little bit more controlled. So if you think about this, it's like having two different plugins just with this knob, just with the mic and the line, because, they sound so different. So always when you're using this plugin on drums or guitars, and this works on pretty much everything, it's a saturation machine, a coloration machine, make sure that you check mic or line, because maybe on mic it's going to sound a little bit better than on the line. All right, so that's it. So hopefully you understand this plugin a little bit more, and hopefully, again, you liked all of this. So if you did, please like and subscribe. And if you have the money and you want to buy me a coffee, you can just check the QRs you have on the screen, or you can go again to the descriptions and you have links for PayPal, Patreon, and YouTube. Thanks. All right, so see you on the next one.